My name is Elena Roberts. The folk chromosoma operation I had at 16 nearly killed me. Folk chromosoma, a rare tumor, struck me at 16. My doctors didn't diagnose me for a year before operating. On the operating table, anesthetic worked immediately. I was hanging over the operating room under the bright lights. I was only 2 meters tall, but the ceiling must have been 6 meters high. The building felt like a cathedral. Chief surgeon instantly checked and said, "Ah, the girl is already asleep." My role was to watch surgery. The treatment was rare, therefore many doctors, students, and trainees came to watch it. I consider myself lucky because this ailment only affects a few people per year in my country, and 90% die before diagnosis. As I dangled over my body awaiting surgery, my worldview shifted radically. Relief, calm, and inner peace flooded over me. Even though I knew my sleeping shape, it seemed strange. It looked like someone borrowed my body to get things done. At that time, I knew my personality was multifaceted. I let go of my sex, age, nationality, and appearance, but kept the rest. I didn't care about the lifeless body on equipment. Like an old, worn-out shirt, watching the operation room let me feel individual and social emotions. The 3-surgeon operating team convened shortly. The primary surgeon was a 67-year-old professor who has performed this operation before. None of them had dealt with my rare ailment. Players and spectators were tense, nervous, and excited until they started. A few seconds passed without a word or movement. The chief surgeon cut the skin. Due to my left adrenal gland tumor, my body was twisted and confined. I watched them meticulously slice the tissues to reveal the adrenal gland. Anxiety peaked. Professor stared at gland without touching it. They waited for the touch to cause a hormonal storm, but no one knew what would happen. A little malignant excrescence decorated the tiny gland. Initially, doctors planned to remove it surgically. Later, the gland's core was determined to be a malignancy that had partially ruptured the gland's covering and protruded. Finally, the instructor decided to make incisions, and the operating room was tense. After the scalpel touched the gland, everyone's worries were confirmed. That split second appeared to last forever, as if time had slowed down. Multiple events occurred simultaneously. Everyone was panicked, and I felt it. Meanwhile, the heart rate monitor screeched. Everyone on the operating room floor was rushing to finish, and I felt a wave of enthusiasm. Time seemed to drag on like a painting of linked hands performing an act. Despite my best efforts, suction from my back, where the lighting were, overwhelmed me. When I was sucked in, it seemed like time was trying to make up for what was lost. The shouting and confusion downstairs were tremendous, and it happened instantly. I suddenly raced along a pitch-black tunnel lighted only by a few rays. One yellow dot shone in the tube. As soon as the dot was within striking distance, the tunnel threw me into an unexpected location like a water slide into a splash pool. Everything was empty. Height, depth, and sideways were subjective. I wasn't flying, but there was no floor. Milky yellow light in the air made it look like the thickest fog you've ever seen, illuminated by see-through yellow fog lights. 5 bright yellow beings appeared instantly. Among them was the protagonist. It looked like a woman, but I didn't know her. Her face became increasingly unrecognizable as I tried to focus on it. After giving up, I felt her face like when you use peripheral vision. The group welcomed us and shared ideas. 3 immaculate spheres, with one larger in the center, formed an equilateral triangle and brought me to an uncanny area in the yellow fog. Whoever I asked what it was never responded. Rather, I sensed change. I saw the yellow fog darkening, but I didn't know what was happening. I saw stars and felt like I was moving as the yellow went deep blue and dark. It was huge. I realized turning around would reveal Earth. I was amazed by the view when I turned around. Beautiful and near, I could practically touch the Earth like a live creature. I marveled at it and noticed hundreds of tiny objects swirling around it. 2 kinds were typical: ugliness, harshness, distortion, countless fragments, and an antique appearance defined the first. The second sort appeared to be occupied and made of the finest materials. They had at least 3 or 4 species of living beings. 2 to 3 meter tall entities watched me from an instrument nearby. "Who are you?" I asked. "Your friends," I said. "What are you up to?" They motioned to my left side, which was the ground underneath me. I turned to see a laser-like beam of blue light flowing through space. This one started and ended like a train, unlike a ray of light, which is undetectable. This was odd. After crossing Earth, the beam traveled through space and time. The planet now had a gorgeous blue aura. Thankfully, I felt something big had happened. Earth seemed alive to me, like a beehive. I could feel Earthling's vibrancy, joy, calm, and exhilaration. I fell to Earth under gravity. I could only wave them off, and the heavenly beings returned smiling. It was strange and amazing to fly approaching Earth. I couldn't land in the dense yellow fog while flying at peak speed. Time was blurry, and space proportions were inconsistent. I stood by while two boys, one 7 and the other 14, welcomed me. Another strange area the boys took me was a natural site that looked like a model in the yellow fog. You entered the model and saw no change. I found myself on a vast lakeshore halfway through a hilly terrain. Fall had started. Sitting on the lakeshore, we appreciated the view. After turning yellow, the trees' leaves fell off. Clouds formed as rain fell. This lasted a while. Snow started when the rain ceased. Long-term snowfall froze the lake. After the snow ceased, it froze for a long period. Winter seemed endless. Lake ice melted, making a thundering crackling sound and causing brooks and drips. I was amazed by the cracking, which I had never heard before. Spring bloomed, but summer was scorching and bug-filled, and fall arrived early. I don't understand this annual seasonal change. The kids then pointed to a right-side lake hill. A giant, 1.80 meters tall, and somewhat hunched over, walked the walkway. I saw him this way, despite the silliness. A man in his 40s or 50s led a horse with a cart. He returned after a 2 or 3 day trip to a nearby city to sell something. He walked contemplatively and dejectedly, washing his legs. I felt like this man as the skies suddenly blackened. Let me view the world his way. The youngest of his 8 children was a newborn, and his wife was small. He was a middle-class peasant despite his poverty and inability to support his family. Though German was his first language, he spoke French well. He farmed outside the city. When I put myself in his shoes, I saw everything. After circumnavigating the hill, he saw a vast plain with a gloomy city in the midst. From our vantage point, it seemed minor. This was the Middle Ages. He entered the city. His perspective created a stunning image that no Hollywood Middle Ages film could match. The roads were narrow, 2 meters wide. Half a meter of dirt and animal excrement covered them. And nasty, filthy, toothless witch-like elderly woman tried to sell me something disgusting. Unclean, pantless youths stared at me from a 1.5-meter wide bridge. They appeared psychologically ill. I could approach the city center via the crowd. Everyone gathered in the square behind a line of warriors in funny chain armor and swords. Tallest people were 1.60 meters. The square had 4 gallows. Executees were neck-bound. The father whose eyes I was peering into realized that one of the gallows belonged to his 14-year-old son, who had been riding shotgun with me. Just now, they were beheaded. The man threw off his horse's reins and ran frantically to the hanging with a roar. He was surprised and shot in the chest by a knight. He died after collapsing. In the crowd, I watched invisibly. After witnessing everything, the mob lost control, tore through the barricade, and committed a horrendous bloodbath. A mother, a 3 or 4-year-old child, and the wife of the guy who was killed or hanged were in the gathering. After the mob took the infant from his mother, a furious armored soldier slashed his head off for no cause. Another child followed me. I suddenly stood on the lakeshore. I was shocked. My mind was twisted by flashes of what I saw. Despite being absent, I was crying and shaking. Personally, I thought so. Kids took a while to calm me down, but I woke up. They pulled me from the sludge, and I woke up in a yellow fog. All were waiting for me when I arrived. Everything became black as if the fog light had been turned off. Knowing my group was also scared made me feel worse. Feeling the same. As I shouted, "What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is going on?" Everyone was paralyzed in dread. I felt that my fate was about to be decided and something terrible was about to happen to me. Nobody responded. Horror gripped everyone. A distant voice murmured, "Calm down. Everything will be fine. Everything is all right. I listened and felt better. After the light came back on, I saw the crowd holding its breath, relieved. My mom cried when I told my parents about it and disclosed that she had been privately telling me the same things throughout the process. After that, the students took me aside to discuss my future. They warned that I would forget our chat. Our lengthy discussion ended, and we parted ways. The surgeon placed me on the table. Even though I knew they were stitching me up, I couldn't express my pain or move to show I was conscious. I saw the children waving in the golden fog, vowing to see each other soon. One of the things we talked about, and I forgot about, is now done. Private, therefore I won't say. I was destined to die that day and never return to Earth. I was saved by otherworldly forces. You may call it hell, but I had to spend a lot of time in a gloomy, unpleasant setting that day. Regardless of age, my misdeeds would lead to redemption. Only then could I return to Earth and face my terrible fate as a human. I know what caused this penalty, but that's another long story. After dying, I felt like a new person when I woke up. Years of experience have changed how I see things and how to act in particular situations. I know my deep desire for spiritual growth and enlightenment. My only goal is this. Anything else is a waste of time. The operation gave me strong memories of many past lifetimes and the ability to see into the future. I limit my past self-awareness failures. I also learned that extrasensory sensations, however frequent in humans, should never be used because they restrict the soul to lower spiritual realms. I promise everyone who has read this that death is normal. Knowing one's place in life is more impressive and significant. I believe in God's wisdom and existence. His essence is forgiveness, compassion, and love. He never refuses anyone who seeks his presence. Next, watch a near-death experience that made a woman consider abortion and talk to angels.